Welcome back to another episode of Danny Rants. Today I have a very special guest, one that I think many people will remember. We've got Beau Brooks today sitting on the couch across from me from the Janoskians.
Yeah.
How are you, Beau?
Yeah, good, man. Thank you for having me. Coming onto this podcast, I wasn't too sure. As I messaged you a few days ago, I thought some people have tried to get me on taking the piss, but just speaking to you right now, I'm looking forward to an authentic, real conversation to dive into.
I could kind of tell when we were going back and forth. I'm like, and I can understand where you're sitting too, like how many people would be trying to do that.
Yeah.
So I was trying to be very precious as we were talking through it. But I've been watching your journey in the last I don't know how long it's been, like 5-6 months maybe on TikTok and Instagram, I guess, as I've been blowing up. I've been watching your one and I was like, I have to talk to this guy. So I appreciate you coming down, man. And I will start, I don't think we really need to introduce what you guys did.
Yeah.
But I'd love to kind of start on when you started with the Janoskians, what made you guys do it? Were you just a bunch of kids looking to do some videos or whatnot? What was sort of the thought process behind it?
Yeah, so I was always into acting. Ever since a young age, I always wanted to be an actor. And I think it has something to do with my dad leaving. I got daddy issues. And I looked up to one of my idols, Leonardo DiCaprio, on the big screen. Just the way that he treated Rose on the Titanic is just that tender love that my mum never received. I'm kind of putting together.
Yeah.
Putting two and two together. So I idolized Leonardo DiCaprio, which made me want to get into acting. So I was always in front of the camera presenting and just wanting to be that person on camera that I kind of looked up to. And then my brother got the video camera from my grandmother because she was always recording home videos to show to my mum. So he picked up the camera and started recording things from very early ages before YouTube came along, and then YouTube came along. And we started just posting stuff and making videos and uploading them until one blew up. And
because you guys were like the OGs almost, right? Even now when I talk to other guys, I was actually with the guys called Misfit Minds. I don't know if you've seen those guys, but I was with them earlier and I sort of said I was coming to catch up with you. And they're like, man, he was like, oh, they were the OGs of YouTube, you know? But you guys were very early days, right? Yeah,
so we were like one of many few that were uploading consistently to YouTube. So what YouTube was back in the day before we made it a career was, remember Charlie Bit My Finger?
Yes.
That video?
Yep.
That was YouTube. It was funny home one-off videos that some just blew up. No one ever took it consistently and uploaded consistently.
Like in a story format sort of thing.
Kind of in a story format, or just consistently coming back every single week. People would just sometimes upload videos and just leave it on there.
Yeah.
We were the first ones to really turn it into a consistent thing and turn it into a business. We weren't the first. There were a few other people that were doing it before us, but we were definitely the first to come out of Australia in the way that it happened, blowing up in the way that it did.
Do they have subscribers and stuff back then still though?
Yeah, they had subscribers back then. Yeah.
And how were you monetizing it back then? Was it the exact same way as it is still now, or?
No, so back then we were monetizing it. We blew up very quick, so we're monetizing off merchandise.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and selling meet and greets. And I remember our first meet and greet, the way we made money was we were charging our fans for hugs. So,
yeah?
Yeah, so we were charging $5 for hugs, and would go back home with $5,000 and go and smash kebabs.
So where did you actually grow up in Melbourne?
Yeah, so we grew up in the northern suburbs. So just one station before Broadmeadows. It was 2 stations, so Glenroy. In a pretty real rough, low income kind of suburb area. There were a lot of drug addicts and stuff back there. I remember there were schizophrenic people walking down the streets, and me and my brothers were always real scared of them. And my mum always warned us of what drugs can do to people at such a young age. So even though we grew up in that lower income suburban area, we kind of just went our own way and ignored everything and kept everything as a warning sign as we were filming YouTube videos and stuff.
And how old were you when you were doing that at the beginning?
Yeah, so we were on the streets making videos. I was around 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember, this must have been the early days. So we had booked you guys for an underage and it was in Box Hill.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this or not.
Yeah.
And we had you guys come in and it was basically the young team that had requested you guys. And I booked you through a guy called Daniel Lamana. So you know Daniel,
Yeah, I know Lamana.
Yeah, so then we had you guys there and I had no real expectation because I wasn't really across it. And I remember you guys rolled up and you were like, oh, we need some guards. I'm like, okay. So we had all these DJs there that were playing and their guards stayed with you guys. And as soon as you came out, they fucking ran at you. Everybody ran at you guys.
Was this with Was this with Havana Brown?
Yes, Havana Brown was it, yeah. And
yes,
I was
remember this.
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I'd never seen anything. And then after I sort of like had to learn backwards about what you guys were doing. But back then there was no YouTubers. Like there wasn't a thing. So even when I'd figured out what was going on, I still couldn't put the pieces together. I was like, so wait a second. So these guys make videos, like what do they do? And it was like, it was early days. But so when you were sort of doing that, you were doing appearances, you were sort of charging people, like obviously we would have paid you guys to pay, I can't remember how much, but you were selling hugs and stuff.
Yeah.
At what point did you start making money off YouTube, or did you never?
Yeah, no. So we started monetizing off YouTube. That's the thing, like the monetization money was always behind the money that we're making through other things.
Yep.
So
whereas now it's done like a bit of a shift.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shift, especially if you're raking it. Actually, I don't think so.
I guess the big guys, probably selling more merch than they are.
Yeah, Mr. Beast, even Mr. Beast, I reckon he's making more money from like Wix studios and brand deals and selling his own stuff and like Prime, like
true. Because for people that don't know, you get paid off. I think it's $5,000 per million views. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's higher now.
Yeah, and there's another thing called AdSense, so it's like different. You can make more money if you place more ads on it. So people who would do big, they make proper money. Like you can live off YouTube, which is like every other social media platform. You can't really. It's in Australia especially. Like I know TikTok you can in America, but it's sort of the only one that you can legitimately make your own channel, your own platform, and actually be paid for properly. But as Beau's sort of gone through, most people end up making money all over the place, like outsourcing.
Yeah, but one thing I have to say about YouTube is that I do like that you get the opportunity to make money from commercialized ads instead of going on TikTok and kind of begging your followers to throw me a universe and stuff like that, which is kind of like why I've stayed away from TikTok. Just because I don't, like I understand the hustle, but I just feel bad for, directly taking money from fans.
Yeah, it's funny, hey, like you're right. Like it's the same thing, but it's a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's probably not it doesn't feel as authentic.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as authentic. I remember even with the ads when we were coming up on YouTube, we decided for a lot of the videos not to have the ads on the videos and to put a cool copyrighted song instead. And that would just like engage the audience, but also make our videos a lot cooler. And we were always like the anti kind of sellout. Our mum was always like, just fucking take the deal.
Yeah.
And we were like, no, we don't want to sell out. Like we want to be cool. Like that was a big thing back then, us wanting to be like, represent something that was fun and edgy and a big, like, the big guy kind of.
So obviously I know you ended up going to America, you guys did, and that's a whole story which we'll go into. But when you went to Australia, like how long was that journey from, making film, how long was that journey from making video clips in Glenroy on your nan's camera to getting to a point where you're making full-time income in Australia to then going to America? Like how long was that distance?
Man, it was so quick.
Yeah,
like
really?
Pretty much happened overnight. Like I would say about 4 months from us transitioning from having Australian management that was organized by my mum to getting signed over to American management and getting record deals and getting movie deals. It was within 4 to 6 months we transitioned into like, a full proper star career.
And that process when you were young, right? So you were 17, you were saying.
Yeah.
How was that? Like, did it feel real or fake? Like, I can't even imagine what it'd be like being a kid from Glenroy.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden gone from, making videos with my nan's camera to now looking at moving to America and meeting all these fucking famous celebrities. Like, how did you go with that? Like, how did you deal with it?
It was just so crazy because everything was coming at us all at once. So we had to jump on every single opportunity. So we didn't even get time to think or get a chance to look back at that point and be like, this is so cool. It's just like, we have to go do this now. There's no time to be anxious. There's no time to double think. We are in the moment and this is fun and this is sick. And we're with the boys and we're just all having a big fat laugh. So I guess like for us, it seems like very cool and unbelievable at the same time where we had to pinch ourselves to be like, is this actually real? Like some of the people that we saw was just like out of our minds, like you never think. And we just would be like, boys, like
6 months prior, you were watching these people on TV and then like 6 months later, you're hanging out with them.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. But like in saying that, all the celebrities that are like huge superstars now, when we were blowing up, were just coming up out of the pipeline. Like the Kardashians, they were popular, but they weren't the Kardashians as they are now. Like right now, they're royalty. But back then, they were just coming up like a super famous Pornhub model
now and
like getting in brand deals and that type of stuff. So I remember the first time I met Kim Kardashian, she opened the door to me. And I didn't even know it was her. I'm like, who's this little shorty with a fat ass? Like, I didn't, yeah, I had no idea it was her. And then like my brothers were like, that's Kim Kardashian. I'm like, oh, sick.
So when you live with your mum, I'm guessing at the time.
Yeah.
And then when you move to America, like what does that look like? Like how does someone take you in? Like, are you almost like an orphan? Like how does it actually go?
Yeah, so we grew up in like a 3-bedroom house. There were 4 of us. My 2 twin brothers slept in the same room. The floorboards were all cracked. A single mother renting out of her house to getting a huge opportunity to meet Jay Sean's manager in America. And we went and sat down with him. And at this point, we were getting all different offers from all different managers. I'm pretty sure Usher's manager came to us. Scooter Braun was the one that like put us on the map with American management because he retweeted one of our videos. And then all the wannabe Scooter Braun managers, like my past manager, sorry, Jeremy, they kind of like gravitated towards us because they noticed that Scooter Braun was paying attention to us. So, yeah, my mum was always like to us, boys, just be careful because everybody wants a piece right now. So just be careful what you do. But I went and sat down with Jeremy. He flew from Los Angeles to Sydney to come sit down and speak with us boys. And when we sat down, he's like, in 6 months, I'm going to get you guys a movie deal. I'm going to get you guys on world stages. You're going to have your own TV show and you're going to be the most motherfucking famous person on this planet. And I'm like 17 years old and my whole dream was to be an actor growing up. So someone says that to me and he said, just to prove that my word is real, I'm going to put, it's not a retainer, but a 6-month clause in the contract. If I don't pull through any of these things, you don't have to pay me any of the 20% and I'll look for better management for you. Sign here.
That's insane. Like I've worked in management. I've never seen anyone do that.
Yeah,
so that's a really bold move from him.
Yeah. And my mum was like she didn't want us to sign with anyone. So when I told mum this was the deal, like he seems pretty legit. Like I feel like he can do this for us. She was still hesitant, but with my push of saying, nah, I want this. Cause I had stars in my eyes.
Yeah, of course.
I talked everyone into it and signed off and,
rest is almost history in a sense.
Yeah, the rest is history.
How'd your mum go? So obviously your mum's managing it, right? So you're talking about this happening in 6 months. Like, how did your mum deal with it?
Mate, my mum is like, she's a single mum. Like she could take on so much. I remember like our first meet and greet at Luna Park. Not only she was calming fans down because they were like pissing their pants and like vomiting and screaming and like wanting autographs, she was calming them down and selling merch at the same time.
That's the best.
Like she's like,
so she really took it on and like made it what it could be.
In a stride. Yeah, she's like, these are my boys and this is our family and this is like what we represent. And just like everything that came on, she just took it and handled it. Like she still handles stuff like a boss.
Now.
Like
was she scared? Was she scared? You reckon or no?
Like, she was always so excited.
Yeah.
Like she was always so happy and excited for us boys. She was scared of people taking advantage of us through that. So that's why I think she always wanted to be like with us the whole way in because she didn't want anything bad to happen to us.
Yep.
But there had to come a point where the birds had to leave the nest and we had to go our separate paths.
So you leave and go to America.
Yep.
So what does that look like when you land in America? What sort of happens? What's your first opportunity? I know you were knocking out the Kardashians, Ariana Grande, Mike Tyson. How does that go? Like, tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So as soon as we landed into LAX, thousands of screaming fans at the airport.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Straight away.
Straight off the bat. They somehow always found out our itinerary. And
was there something that you shut down a street in Sydney or something like that? Did that happen? There was some real massive moment before you guys went to America where it was like got out of control. Was that in Sydney?
Oh, it was like in every state here, bro.
Yeah,
like,
okay, wow. So every time you went somewhere, it would just go nuts.
Yeah, like when we planned meet and greets, we'd shut down pretty much.
I remember you guys doing one and it was like, it was a meet and greet and they basically got shut down. Were the police angry at you guys or they kind of understood and supported it?
Yeah, the police, like, they couldn't do much because, like, it wasn't really our fault. Like, what can you really do?
I can imagine the coppers, they would have been like not understanding what was going on in the slightest.
Confused. I remember we did it in London in Hyde Park. The police were really pissed off because we trampled all over the Queen's Garden. We almost got banned from London. And that
just
was
for being there.
Yeah, just for like, but we did tweet, we're like, hey, we're going to be at Hyde Park at this time on this day. And so like there was like 10,000 fans that showed up. And then we'd get fined every time we put our head out the window of the W Hotel.
Yep.
Because there was everyone on the streets just like
I remember that. I remember seeing those videos of that.
Yeah.
So you go to America, there's thousands of fans waiting for you guys to get there. Then what happens?
Yeah. So we were living out of hotels for a while, kind of that rock star lifestyle. And we had never done weed before.
Yep.
And so as soon as we like land, our assistant who, I can't really say any names.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Our mate, he came into the hotel and he like first time ever meeting him, he just dropped like, I think it was like 2 pounds of weed on the floor, and he's like, "Welcome to Cali, boys."
So it happened straight away.
So
that was going to be my next question.
Like, as soon as we got to Los Angeles, we were smoking weed like every single hour of the day. Like as soon as we wake up, like as soon as we got there, that's what happened. And because we were living at hotels at the time for about the first 6 months, we got fined, I remember, from like the W Hotel and all there, because they've got like a long chain of different partners. We got banned and fined from there, and we got fined, I think it was $80,000 worth of damages, just because we were these kids that had just got fame, just got money, and living out of hotels away from family, so we could do whatever we want without anyone like looking down on us. And so we were like, we burnt carpets, we ate out the mini fridge 3 times a day, like it was just a mess. I remember the phone lines were off the hook. It was just like that real kind of rock star lifestyle for a while.
And you were 18 by then?
Yeah, I was. By then, I would have been. I would have been 18, 19. Yeah, around there.
Yep.
Yeah, very young.
And with the drug stuff, was there lots of like, obviously you're meeting all these people, but were the people like trying to introduce it to you relatively strongly, or was it a slow process where it sort of started?
No, it was like weed. It was just so like in Los Angeles. Yeah, it's just so like normal there. Weed is just like having a Gatorade or drinking a V, like it's just very normal.
Yep.
But like I didn't know what the drug was, and that drug, like we'll get onto it later, like ended up being a big part of my demise and downfall. Yeah, it was a big gateway drug.
So you're in America, and then you've got these opportunities, right? So there's probably 2 parts I want to go into this. So the one is like, when you were making money, what kind of money were you making at this point? Like, how were you making money? And like, how were you breaking it down between like the whole team?
Yeah. Okay. So the way we were making money was, it was through companies. So I remember one of our first big checks was our own merchandise line, and somebody, a manufacturer and production, wanted to create that for us. So they just gave us $20,000 in an envelope and said, "Here you go, boys, split it up." So that was kind of like dispersed between us. But the real money was coming from record labels. They were giving us advances, selling us advances. And then from touring companies like Live Nation. I don't know if I can say these names.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Sweet. Through Live Nation, they gave us like big advances as well. And
for meet and greets, were they charging for meet and greets or shows?
For concert shows, because Sony saw that we had a fan base through the prank videos and wanted to capitalize on it through music, because One Direction was just popping off, and we had that kind of vibe. But we were kind of like the boy band that wasn't structured together by your Simon Cowell or whatever.
Getcha, yeah.
We were just mates that came up together, and we had that kind of rebellion. So Sony signed us for that and paid us for that. And then Live Nation paid us advances for the shows. And yeah.
Sort of how you're making most of your money when you first got there.
So when we first got there, yeah. Man, that's a very good question. It would have been through money that we had made before we got there.
Okay, so you almost funded yourself there, and then it sort of went from there, yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, no. Jay Sean.
Yep.
So Jay Sean, our manager's artist, he sponsored us pretty much. He gave us $100,000 to kickstart us, and he believed in us. So he gave us $100,000 to live and to make a name for ourselves. Yeah. What
were some of the parties you were going to? Like when you're hanging around with all these different names and stuff, like what were they like? Like the events you were going to in Hollywood and stuff? Because I remember watching from afar and I was like, what the fuck? These guys are hanging out with the Kardashians, Ariana Grande, Mike Tyson, as I said before. And I was like, That must be insane. Like, what was that like when you were sort of in that part of your life?
Yeah, so as soon as we got there, we didn't know anyone except for Jay Sean. So he invited us straight into his crew. And his crew was like Lil Wayne, and it was like all those big kind of celebrities, Ludacris. And so we were going into clubs and sitting in the corners with these guys, getting bottles and drinks and stuff coming around. And that was crazy. And he'd take us into the strip joints and give us like stacks of cash this much. And I remember Luke got lost. He didn't know that he had to pay for 2 hours sitting in the back. So Jay Sean had to cover Luke in the back of the strip joint because he was just like having a jolly good old time and didn't know that he had to pay for it. So yeah, it was in the beginning through Jay Sean, we kind of met all these people. And I think that's kind of what all the young people that we attracted to our parties saw from us when they found out that we were there. And we ended up creating the biggest parties in LA, not at clubs, but at our house. So what happened after the hotels and stuff, we were looking for our own place, and we decided to put all of our money together to get a big fat mansion.
Yep.
Which looking back at now, I wish I played it off differently. I wish I like rented something more modest and saved my money. But yeah, the reason we did it was for the look back then and to invite the hype and to bring names in, I guess. And so
help network and build your name up. Yeah. Kind of makes sense though. Like a lot of people do that, right?
Yeah, they do. But if I was to do it again, I wouldn't do it that way because like it's just the whole world that whole world is just, I feel like, is just fake.
Not real, yeah.
Yeah, I'd feel like I'd want to build myself up honestly and maybe have a talent that I can share with the world instead of like paying my way for it.
Getcha.
Yeah, so I feel like that's what we did, and we threw the biggest house parties, like the biggest house parties in Los Angeles. We were renting, I think it was Britney Spears' old house through a radio host called Big Boy.
Yep.
And that was 10,000 USD a month. So that's like a whole house deposit in 1 year. And we absolutely like trashed the house, but we had some big names roll through. Like The Weeknd came through with his boys. And I remember our security kicked The Weeknd and his boys out because they were being reckless and dropping shisha coal all over the floor, and one fell on my brother, and the security had to kick The Weeknd out. I didn't even know it was a weekend at that time. And then I found out like a couple years later, we had Kylie Jenner and all her friends, like Stas and Stella. I remember I had like a crush on one of her friends. Kendall Jenner, I kissed.
Did you really? Yeah. That's the best.
Yeah.
I wish that was me. Yeah. Sorry, Sarah. That's my wife.
Yeah, sorry, Rachel. I'm just seeing a new girl.
That's the best.
I wish that was me. Your wife would probably be like, yeah, that would be all right.
No, because Kendall Jenner's like my fave. That's like a dream come true almost. What other names were coming through there?
Yeah. Man, I don't know.
List goes on.
Yeah, list goes on.
So how long were you guys in America for?
It would have been 4 or 5 years, but it wasn't consistently 4 or 5 years because we were always out of the country for tours around like the UK and Europe and stuff, and Australia and New Zealand.
So when you're doing these tours, like what were you actually doing at them?
Yeah, so by the like 4th tour, we had built up a whole like song list of like 12 songs. But at the very beginning, I remember we first toured around Australia with Reese Maston and Justice Crew.
Yeah, wow.
And we had no idea what we were doing because we only had one song to perform and we were on stage for 30 minutes. So we rented big sumo suits and just like ran at each other. And I remember one point we did stacks on top of each other and we're all looking at each other thinking, what the fuck are we doing?
Getting paid to do this?
Like there's an arena of people just watching us and we're like, what are we doing? Yeah.
And so, did you have like a biggest hit?
Yeah, we had some hits that like went #1 in some countries for like a few weeks and stuff. So that was Set This World on Fire, I think went gold.
Oh, yeah, I remember that song.
Yeah.
I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, do I know those songs? But I remember Set This World on Fire, yeah.
Yeah.
So were you ever thinking about doing music or did they sort of push you that way?
So me and my brothers always loved singing.
Yeah.
And I like grew up playing guitar from a young age. I grew up with someone down the street. He'd come over and give me lessons and stuff. It wasn't until Sony suggested it to us that me and my brothers like started taking singing lessons and started taking it seriously. which is crazy to think what work ethic we had at such a young age to be like, all right, there's an opportunity here. Let's go spend our money as an investment to train our voices for 6 months before we get on a track. So we did like singing and we loved music because our mum like played Nirvana and all like real music when we were growing up. So it was definitely like an honor to be able to be given an opportunity. And I remember when we first released a song, everyone's like, you guys are sellouts, you guys use auto-tune and stuff like that. But you'd be like actually interested to know there's like very little auto-tune on the track. Like it wasn't that much auto-tune. And yeah, it's something we did like doing, which showed through the work, which is why I think it went gold.
Yeah, for sure. And so at what point did it start to wind backwards or start to feel like it was falling apart? Like when did that happen?
Yeah, it would have been after probably like a couple years of partying in LA in the mansion and waking up next to our mates every single day, always being in front of each other's faces and kind of feel like we're walking on eggshells because we were put under such a microscope by the media and the fans where people felt like they were part of our relationship. So we were kind of questioning each other based off other people's kind of views because everyone was just like in our lives. So like we'd hear things about like my mate from this person that thought something, you know, and it wasn't, and that's like what got us so famous was the friendship, the genuine friendship. And once that started to dwindle was when the fans stopped showing up to the airports. And once the fans stopped showing up to the airports and to the hotels, the book deals stopped, the movie deals stopped, the potential, everything stopped because the fans were the show. They're the ones that put us on. And because our friendship was just like, it was just so tense and
it wasn't authentic anymore.
It wasn't fun anymore. It was like, this is now a business and like, this is now our livelihood. You better not fuck this up for me type of thing. It wasn't like, this is sick. Like,
so it went from being like, this is the best experience in the whole entire world.
It was like, yeah, let's take on the world. Let's show them all like what we got to like, you better not fuck this up. And like, it was like a big shift.
But so they you were like, they're your brothers too. So you like you and your brothers all fine too? Or you starting to have those same sort of tensions?
So this is the thing. Me and my brothers would physically fight before like the Janoskians and stuff.
Yeah.
So when we kind of blew up, we kind of stopped physically fighting because there were people around.
Yeah, I getcha.
That eventually did happen and we did physically fight. And then the outsiders who weren't our family that saw that looked at us in a different light too.
I get you. They'll be like, this is pretty insane.
Yeah. They're like, whoa, like these guys are crazy. But little do they know every brother's fight 100%. Like that. It's just behind closed doors. But because the doors were always open, our whole relationship got like put on show for everyone, which made everyone question kind of like,
what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on?
So was there 2 points to this one? So was there like a craziest moment when you were blowing up that you can think of that was like insane, crazy story?
Yeah.
And then the next part I want to go into like one on the backside, was there like a moment where you were like, you know, this is fucked now? Yeah. And like, is there like a high and then like a low? Do you have like a super high point or like, you know, just a story that doesn't even sound real that you can tell me?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So we were at the VMAs, which is the, I think it's Vancouver Music Awards.
Yeah.
And we rock up to the red carpet on this big yellow school bus that we rented to put on a show, and we get out and Ed Sheeran's standing right there. And we were getting like bombarded for interviews. He was getting bombarded for interviews, but eventually we ended up like meeting up. And he's like, and I'm like getting a selfie, like, Ed, I love you. And he's like, I know you boys. And we're like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, you guys want to party after? And we're like, yeah, fucking oath, let's do it. So we ended up presenting Avril Lavigne an award on stage. And then after that, we all went to an after party. And at the after party, it was a club. And Psy from Gangnam Style was in our booth, along with Ed Sheeran. And Psy was sitting there in his booth eating KFC chicken with his wife. Like, they didn't drink. They were just like smashing KFC.
That's a life. I wish I was doing that right now.
I'd love some KFC right now. And Ed was just like pouring shots down us and down him. And we were just like letting loose. And we go onto the dance floor and it was like, so you can't believe that you're just partying with Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
And like, it was like, he just wanted to stay with us. You know, when you go partying with people and like, they kind of like merge off and they're excited about something new. It was like, we were just like one click.
Yep.
And he'd like say hi to people, but then come back to us. And then it was, so when the night finished, we walk out of the club and he's like, what are you guys doing now? And we're like, kick-ons? And he's like, yeah, all right. So he gets in the back of our van. Somehow there's a guitar there. I don't know. It's Ed Sheeran. He starts playing like One Direction songs because he wrote like a lot of One Direction songs.
Yeah.
And then he was like bagging One Direction, talking about like how Harry was gay while like strumming the guitar. Anyway, he gets back to our hotel and he's sitting on the edge of our bed, or one of our beds, because we had like 4 or 5 different hotel rooms and we all gathered in one, which is like what we did a lot to like smoke up and all that stuff. So he was sitting on the edge of our bed and we're all sitting on the floor, like looking up at him like he's our teacher. And he's like telling us stories, and mid-story, he was talking about Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber and how he was in the middle of that. And mid-story, he's like, oh, I need to chuck a piss. So he gets up, grabs our wine cooler from a bedside table, walks it into our closet and just starts pissing in our closet. And we're like, Ed Sheeran's pissing in our closet. Like, what is going on? But the thing I loved about Ed Sheeran was that he was my favorite celebrity that I'd met out of all of them, because he was just so genuinely authentic, did not give a shit, didn't even travel with security. And we're like, why aren't you traveling with security? And he's like, have you seen my fan base? They're like 14, 15-year-old girls. I can handle that. Like, I don't need any security. He was just so down to earth and humble. And I feel like he was like from the area type
Yeah, I
of
get
thing.
you, yeah.
So
you can kind of say that, hey?
Yeah, he's like real genuine. I'm pretty sure he did come from the streets, like busking from the streets and stuff. And
yeah, he's like, I think that's what makes it big, is like authenticity.
Yeah, so that was really cool.
On the other side of it, was there a point when you like, you know, you're in America and it's sort of starting to slow down, as you said, like the fans weren't coming to the hotels as much and where you were like, you know, I think this is over. Like, I think that the sort of, I guess the last call, what's the word there? Fucking, what?
The curtains?
Yeah, like the last curtain was sort of being pulled. Was there a point there?
Yeah, the last curtain call.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for, yeah.
Yeah, I do specifically remember it. It was right before Christmas, before we were supposed to go back home for Christmas, and things had slowed down. I remember in Italy, we only sold like 60 tickets to a show, and we had just come back from tour and rented a new apartment in Los Angeles. And our manager comes over and gives us a hug and says, it was a nice run, boys. And like, from there, we're like, I guess that's it. Like, it's just finished now.
So you started just like planning to come back to Australia?
We were planning to come back home to Australia for Christmas, like we did every single Christmas.
Yep.
But because things had started to die down, I guess, and our friendships had just, everything had just like, yeah.
You could just tell it was like the end of the run.
You could just tell it was like finished.
And so then when you came back to Australia, like how did that impact you? Like, how did you feel? You've gone from being top of the world, hanging out with Ed Sheeran and he's pissing in your cupboard, kissing Kendall Jenner, to then now coming back and being told by your manager that this is the end of the run. How did you deal with that?
I didn't deal with it. I didn't accept it. I'm like, no, it's not finished. I'm still so fucking famous. I came out of this little suburb and I met all these people. I've achieved all this. I've got all these awards. I've gone gold. Like, I'm the most subscribed person in Australia. It's not over. I don't accept it. No. And so every single person that came into my life at that point, wanting to know the stories and wanting to hang out with me and wanting to party, I took in, because that helped keep the party alive. It kept everything alive for me. So that's what kept me in a spiral loop after the fall off my peak. It was, I wasn't buying Coke. It was people putting it up my nose for free just to hang out with me. And
they'll keep those people keeping you special because they were sort of sucking the energy out of you to make themselves feel special in a sense.
Yeah, because they wanted to feel like they were hanging out with a celebrity, even though at that point I wasn't a celebrity. I was just washed up.
Yeah.
Like, that's a definition of washed up, just trying to be around people to feel better about yourself because you think that you're better than them because they've got a 9-to-5 job.
Mm. And so like, so you were doing that like what, daily at the time or just on the weekends, or like what was life looking like when you were back in Australia? And you're at this point?
Yeah, so I'd never touched any hard drugs until I came back to Australia. In Los Angeles, it was just weed and alcohol. So I started getting introduced to hard drugs, and it started being like, when I say hard drugs, I mean party drugs. I don't mean meth or heroin, but everything else I did. But when I got back to Australia, it was like once every 2 weeks, and then it became once every week, and then it became once whenever anyone brought the drinks over. And then I got into an addiction of prescription drugs and just fell through a spiraling hole of alcohol, coke, and prescription drugs. Like,
what prescription drugs were you on?
There were Valium, Xanax. I didn't go too hard on Xanax. That's a real like
bad one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a dark drug. Valium, I got anything that ends in apam.
Yep. Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, anything that ends in a PAM, I liked it. I liked the feeling of it. And
the cloudiness.
Like, the reason I took it was because it helped with the come down of alcohol and coke.
Yep.
And then it also, I started to learn that it shut off any anxiety for me to be in front of camera. So it was just any little excuse. It's like smoking a cigarette, one after you're hungry, one when you're excited, one when you're angry, one after you're taking a shit. That was kind of like the same thing with like Valium or like any of the APAMs or.
And what were you doing for work at that point? Like, what were you doing? You said you were in front of the camera. Like, what were you doing? Still just YouTube stuff at the time?
Yeah. So within the 5 to 6 years, it's all kind of messy. Like at some points I was working like on a junkyard, and then other points, but I never told anyone I was doing that. It was just like to bring in a little bit of money. But a lot of the time I was just on Centrelink, like hoping that my career in front of a camera would blow up. And for 2 years, I was traveling with one of my friends around Australia doing survival video challenges where we go out into the wild with like a knife, a water bottle, and like sleep out in the wild for 2 days. And then that would be all drug and alcohol free. But as soon as we get back, it'd just be an absolute fucking riot.
And what the other boys do? Like your brother and then because he wasn't related to you there, was he?
Sorry?
The other members, what did they do?
Yeah, so Luke and Jay. So Luke started focusing on videography for businesses and companies, which he was always good with the camera since like growing up and stuff. And Jay was always talented at painting and art, so he's put all of his focus into that. So everything that we've done has all been creative and like kind of building our own businesses and stuff.
Do you guys still talk now?
I have to talk to my brothers because I live with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get a choice. But the other two, I saw Daniel like 2 months ago at a beach house. We all like got together, and he's got a kid now. So he's doing really well for himself. And I feel like every time I catch up with Daniel, nothing has changed. And then James is doing his own thing, and he sees me from a distance. I see him from a distance. There's still that mutual respect, but there's no, like, it's not what it was when we were in high school. Like, 'cause how many of your friends can you say that you grew up with in high school you're still mates with?
Yeah, of course, things change and mature and whatnot.
Yeah, so but you still respect them.
Totally, of course. So did the other boys have as much of a crash as you, or did you feel as though you sort of dealt with it the worst, or?
Nah, the rest are all shit kicks. Nah, nah, I can't really speak on behalf of anyone, to be honest. I don't know where they are in their lives. Like, even my brothers, I can't really speak on behalf of them.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, for myself, I know that I crashed, like, really, really hard, and it took something really dark for me to come out of it and to come out of it alive on the other side. And, yeah, since, like, turning from that turning point, I haven't looked back, and so not even a cigarette will faze me now. Like,
are you okay to talk about what was the turning point? Like, what actually? What point did you go? Okay, I've got an issue here.
Yeah,
and I need to work out how to change my life. Like, can you go into that?
Yeah, I will. I've mentioned this before, and sorry, Mum, for keep bringing this up. It was on my mum's 50th birthday.
Yeah,
and she had some of her friends around, and I just saw it as an excuse to bring a whole bunch of my friends around. And so at that party, there was a huge cocktail of all different substances, from hallucinogens, downers, uppers, alcohol, weed. And it was just a combustion and a mixture of all. I don't know what the coke was cut with. It was probably cut with meth, for all I know, which most coke is usually cut with these days. People don't even like realize. So it was a combustion of all that 14 months ago. And I don't know if I went into bed and it was a heart attack and my heart stopped, or if it was just me hallucinating. Like, I can't say, but all I do know is that I feel like I went to the other side and I saw the other side, and I had a revelation, like, to make the long story short, and I decided to come back in. And when I woke up completely sober and with realization of why I'm here.
Yep.
And I know why I'm here. It's not because I need to be here. It's because I want to be here every single fucking day for my family. I want to be that person that my family can come to. And the only way that I can be that person is to work on myself first and do all the hard work that it takes for me to respect myself, build confidence and trust within myself first before my family can come to me and I can have that life that I want.
It's funny you say that, 'cause
wanted.
you wouldn't know this, but I also come from like a really rough sort of background and upbringing.
Yeah.
And my family have had similar troubles to what you're talking about through this whole podcast, more so like the drug and alcohol sort of stuff. And myself, like I know I spoke to you beforehand, I was like, hey, look, I don't do that stuff. It's not who I am. Like even the people assume I do because of what my club and my background that I've lived in. Not to say I haven't. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't done that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But mine was the same. So it's kind of weird that you've said that.
Really?
So I was legit
Wow.
like, my brother was having troubles, my sisters, like family was having trouble. And I'm like, if I don't fucking fix myself, then I can't fix the issues and problems that my whole family has. I'm just, you know, I'm no help to anybody. So I had to figure out how to get myself on the straight and narrow and be a better person from every single way, because I was like, you know, I'm going to continue to live in this generational trauma if I don't fix it. So it's funny you sort of say that. It really resonates with me because I did the same. I was like, you know, it's not about me. It's not because I need to get better, or it's not because I need help or whatever. It was more that the people around me need me to be good so that I can make them better. Yeah. And so it's kind of crazy that you saying that, because it like really hit a nerve for me just then. So
Yeah, awesome. And I'm glad that I could. And I feel like a lot of people that wake up from that life and like want to build a new life, that's usually the reason. The reason is everyone.
Yeah.
Because that's just what makes everything whole. It's just,
So your journey since then, I've obviously been watching on TikTok, but you've sort of kind of gone to a position where you're sort of like now being so open, like you're doing the opposite. Whereas like beforehand, a lot of people, you know, they disappear into their abyss. You've kind of come out and gone, hey, you know, I was this super famous person. These are my crazy stories. Now I'm working in a factory. Now I'm doing this and I'm clean. Like, how's that been on you? Like, has it been good, bad, ugly, like hard? You know, like what's the experience been like?
Like to first admit to it was the hardest, because I'd always put up this front and built my character, the character that I thought people wanted to see. I thought the destruction of that character would be the destruction of my career. But it was quite the opposite, because the destruction of that character ended up being somebody that I respect, and people ended up seeing that. So it was looking at the hate comments straight in the fucking face and really getting into those hate comments and seeing what they mean to me. And the biggest hate comment was, "You fell off."
Yep.
That was the one that always stood out to me, and I was always so scared to address until I'm like, I did fall off. I fell off into addiction. I fell off into spiraling out of control, not giving a crap anymore. I fell off. But I'm doing everything that I can to live the most successful life that I can at the moment. And yeah, it might not ever be big or in peak as what it once was, but at least I'm doing my absolute best and trying my hardest.
I love that, man. That's awesome. That's really powerful. Hey.
Yeah.
But it's like, I appreciate that too. It's like being able to face, you know, you weren't even talking to those haters. You're talking to yourself in a sense. Like having to admit that this is where I'm at and that's okay. Must have been, I cannot imagine how freeing that must have been for you.
It was, yeah.
But like the haters too, like they've gone from being super fans. You got 10,000 people at these meet and greets and whatnot. Did they sort of turn on you eventually or not? Or, you know, do you still have sort of good support base now? I know that I'm seeing it the other way around where people are being motivated by what you're doing, but did your motivators become haters? Like instead of your haters become your motivators in a sense?
Wait, so did my motivators become? Yeah, they did, because like the big crowd that was once behind me ended up hating on me because everything that I promised to them, I like rubbed shit in their face, and they're like, fuck this guy, he fell off.
Yeah.
So it was a majority of the like fans that turned into haters. And so when I did come back, I realized that I've got very few people left. And oh well, I've got few people left. The people that I do address now hopefully makes small impact.
Yeah. The right
That's
people.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next for Beau? Like, what's the next year look like? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Like, have you thought that far ahead or what's?
Yeah. I've thought pretty far ahead actually.
Yeah?
Yeah. So Well, this year, a small goal of mine is I want to run from Craigieburn to Geelong within 12 hours, which is like 100 kilometers.
Yeah, wow.
And I want to do that and raise as much money as I possibly can and just help some people out in Melbourne.
Yep.
And maybe some people that want to come out of addiction or that like live in domestic abuse or violence or that type of thing. That's a small goal. A larger goal is I'd love to start creating music again.
Yeah, wow, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Man, I reckon I might be the person to talk to.
Oh, really?
No, I work in music, obviously. Like, I can definitely help you out.
I'd
put you in
love
contact
to.
with people. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got a story to tell now. And I'm like, I want to like do motivational speak. I want to speak to big crowds. I'm like, the way to do that is through music. Like, I that's like what I want to do for sure.
So would you say that everything happening was still, you look back at it positively, or now do you look back at it negatively? Like, where does it sort of lay or sit with you now?
I see it as one big lesson.
Yeah.
As like, it happened to me at such a young age for a reason. And I see it as a blessing in disguise, because I've taught myself the path that I can't take. I can't take anymore because that path only leads to one way. So yeah, I see it all as a lesson.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Hey, we're going to have to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for coming down, man. You have blown my mind. Your story is amazing. And I think that a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from this conversation. Looking forward to sort of, I guess, having you on my network and seeing where we can do stuff down the track.
Sounds good.
I normally have a sponsor that I shout out, but I'm not going to in light of like what we've just talked about.
It's okay. Shout it out. People can make their own choices. Seriously.
So yeah, WP shots. But yeah, thank you guys for supporting. But I purposely didn't bring it today because I know I wanted to respect your journey. But thank you so much for coming down, man. I really appreciate it. And I fucking can't wait to see what the next few years look like for you.
Thank you very much.
Legend.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, brother. You're a legend. That was awesome.
Thank you, mate.